Okay. I am updating our title here, but so what are you guys doing for networking in the coming holiday networking rush? What are the ones not to miss, Mark?
Well, the WBC event is always one not to miss. At Congressional Country Club, I call it the electrical contractors reunion because every electrical contractor in town is there, uh, and you get to talk to all of them, and it's usually their top leadership's there as well. So that's always good. And Congressional is a great venue. ABC's event at Manor is always a great event. Um, it's rule number one: stay mobile at Manor.
Yeah,
That's
no kidding. Manor's got a lot of nooks and crannies. I found myself going to that event and getting trapped in a handful of great conversations, but in one room.
in one corner. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's about 10 different rooms and venues you can be in there. Uh, also, both those the after parties are always good. Um,
After parties, Mark. There's after parties
there's
of
after
the
parties,
Christmas of
yeah,
the holiday parties.
yeah. There's after parties.
I had no idea.
So in the basement of each of those venues, there are bars, and they're member bars, and because it's a member has to sponsor the event for the association to have it there. Usually, there are members that go down there, and the party will go on until the member bar closes. So,
Ooh.
while Debbie and gang will roll up their stuff, and Steve Kenton and Rita will roll up their stuff, go downstairs and find a bar.
Just
That's what
if you go to the after party, I'm thinking that's the point at which you'd want to make sure that you've taken an Uber.
you want to take an Uber. Yes,
You don't want to take an Uber at that point.
yes, or have your sleeping bag in your car so you can sleep in the parking lot.
There you go. There you go. All right, guys, we're going to go live here
All right.
in just a few seconds. If you're starting to join us, thank you. I've got some folks I can see, joining us on the LinkedIn live stream, but we'll hold off until 8 a.m. proper to officially go live to allow folks to get here. In that last little bit, I think for those folks who attended last week, this is what it's supposed to look like, which is a live stream right on LinkedIn rather than having to reroute you to Zoom. And all of this will naturally record and be available for those of you who weren't able to get here live. So this is what the norm is. So, all right, good. It is 8. We're going to start right on time. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the morning huddle. My name's Chad Prinky. Today, our normal partner, my normal partner, Stacy Holzinger, is out. She's got a whole week of intensive leadership training that she's going through right now as a part of the ABC Metro Washington experience. And so we're going to miss Stacy today, but we're lucky enough to have our friend Cody Wilcox joining us. Cody is from Malik Mechanical. Cody, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here and for everybody to join us.
Thanks, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm getting used to daylight savings a little bit, but besides that, I can't complain.
Yeah, I always like an excuse to get into my pajamas early, so that's nice. And I also like that I don't feel like I wake and go to sleep in darkness only. At least not until somewhere around February. It's nice to be greeted by the sun at least somewhat close to my wake up time.
I agree.
Well, cool. Cody, you're going to be playing the role of capturing our questions. All attendees who are here with us live, please make sure that you're sending in your questions throughout the course of the conversation. We're not going to answer them as we go. We're going to answer them at the end. But go ahead and type them in along the way. That way, while they're fresh in your mind, we have an opportunity to get your best questions on the line. So, Cody, I'm going to put you, move you to the side here until about 8:20, and we'll pull you back in. Good?
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks. Mark Drury is today's guest. Mark, thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, Chad. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and join your crew who's signed on here and listening and watching along.
Thank you so much for being here. Mark, you and I have known one another for quite a while at this point, and we were when we were kicking around, running this, having you on the morning huddle. One of the things I'll tell the audience, for weeks, this slot just said need to determine title, right? Because I think the truth is, Mark, you and I can talk about anything together, and in fact, we have. And so when we were preparing for today's discussion and exploring topic areas we could cover, we really try to sort of narrow things down. This idea of small business and growth and getting to the next level continued to come up between us. I know it's something that we're both passionate about. So that is today's title, which is Grow and Balance Your Small Business. So let's start by defining, first things first, Mark. Tell us a little bit about your story. Give us a little on your background, like in a minute or so. I know that's
okay.
tough.
I'll give a brief. Okay, so I recently in March I retired from employment, and I started up an LLC because I've got a few board positions that are in the industry in the nonprofit sector that require me to be a business member. So I started an LLC. Now for years I've mentored company owners and company leaders in different companies, and I'm continuing to do that, and I'm doing some consulting. So I'm talking to business owners, helping them build their business, helping them improve, helping them expand, helping them through issues, learning the ropes, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing that. 44 years in the construction industry, 18 on the general contracting side, and 26 years as a mechanical subcontractor. Started Shapiro and Duncan back in 1995. They're about $4 million a year, 40 people. When I left in March, it was 140 million a year and 400 plus people. So, been in the business of building businesses. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's an awesome story. Yeah. And along the way, and what you don't have time to talk about, and anybody who knows Mark knows this, is that, Mark's had, educational experiences in the design build world, more leadership experiences and leadership training experiences than one could, try to fit into a lifetime, and all those different types of things. And it's a part of the reason, Mark, that you and I can talk about literally anything together. So if I can try, in our limited time that we have together, right,
We're going to try and
keep us focused on small business, I'd like to try as a starting point to define small business. What does that mean for it as a contractor? What's a small business?
Well, I think it depends on what trade you're in and what your market looks like, whether you're a small business or not. I mean, you could be an $8 million countertop company and be the largest countertop company in your region, or you could be a $8 million mechanical contractor and be considered a small business. So it really depends on what your trade is, what your work is, what you're doing. The government defines it by trade and GC, et cetera, and they have average revenues for the last 3 years, and some of them are pretty big. Mechanical is 17 million for the last 3 years. I'm trying to think. GC, I think, is 33 million for the last 3 years, and that's if it's under 33 million, you're defined as a small contractor. Well, a lot of $10 million contractors, a lot of $25 million contractors wouldn't think of themselves as small, possibly.
Right.
Depending on the market they're in. So, I mean, small, you're struggling, you're growing. Well, I'm not going to say you're growing because I think everybody should be growing all the time. But you're small and you're struggling. You don't have a lot of resources. You may be a mom and pop shop. You don't understand necessarily. You may not have a lot of systems and processes in place,
right.
Procedures in place. You may not have brought in the right softwares, et cetera, to do job cost tracking, et cetera. So
one of the things that I think about when I think about defining a small business in the construction industry is that in fact, while I know the government has its definition, when I think about a small business, I simply think about operating in a resource constrained environment
Yeah.
where it's not like being a part of, Coca-Cola or Toyota, where if you can turn and throw massive amounts of resources at a thing and not break the bank. But where you're operating in a resource constrained environment where you're making decisions that on a daily basis either make or break the company financially. And almost by definition, if I use that as a definition, I would say the vast majority of the construction industry falls into the small business category.
Yeah, even when you're making $600 million a year, you still make decisions day by day.
Correct.
To
Yeah,
make it.
because at the end of the day, the way that the construction industry is set up is so diffuse and it's so hyper localized and right, based on
Yeah.
exactly what's going on in a geography that the majority of the building industry is small businesses. So anyway, I'm
Absolutely.
hoping that the content that we talk about today isn't just relevant to that company that's 6 to 8 million, but that is relevant to that company that's 250, 500 million. Because ultimately operating in that kind of resource constrained environment, making decisions on a day-to-day basis that could make or break the business. I think that relates. So, but
Yeah.
with any with
I, I would
at any rate,
I would say, Chad, that the discussion should pertain to any business, regardless of size and revenue, that has a vision for the future and can take a look at where they are today and establish a baseline, and then create a vision for the future, and then back map down to put your roadmap together, your strategic plan to get to reach your vision.
all right. So let's start there. One of the things that you and I have talked a good bit about is with a lot of the small businesses we both talk to. One of the things that they mention on a somewhat regular basis as kind of like a gut response to their vision. They talk about doubling.
Mhm. Yeah, doubling. I want to
What
double my revenue next year.
Right. I want to double my revenue next year. I want to double my revenue over the next 2 years, or whatever that looks like. What do you say to folks who talk about doubling?
Well, I say, what do you think it takes to double your revenue? Is it just a matter of bidding more work and bringing more work in? What about your team? I mean, you got to look at your team. You got to look at your staffing. If you want to double your revenue, doubling your revenue when you're $500,000 a year is not that hard. You might be adding one person to give you that capacity. Doubling your revenue when you're $40 million a year, you might be adding 30 or 40 people to your team to do that. Now, where do you get those people? That's the resource. People is our biggest resource. Our people are everything in terms of building your business and executing projects. So doubling, yeah, I mean, it's a nice thought, but you need to look at what's it going to take to double, and what kind of team does it take? Because doubling your revenue, if you don't execute, is the way back to the basement.
So you got to be ready for growth.
Right.
How do you know you're ready for growth? What are some of the things that you would be really confident about to determine you are ready for growth?
Well, I think you need to be attuned to the market. You need to know what the available work is in the coming year, the coming 2 years. You need to know what your current backlog is, and you need to know what your pipeline is for bringing resources in. How am I going to bring in the resources to get this done? Is it hiring people? Is it subcontracting? Is it breaking it out?
So let's pause there for a second and do a little bit of a deeper dive on that topic, because I think that's the one that I hear the most from contractors considering growth is the chicken or the egg question. Should we achieve growth and then hire to meet those needs, or should we hire to be prepared for growth?
Well, I'm a big proponent of hiring to prepare for growth, and it can be done in a somewhat linked environment. It doesn't necessarily have to be one and then the other. It can be happening together. I mean, you can be pursuing work and have a good handle on it and pursuing resources at the same time. I mean, realistically, bringing on a new hire, if you can bring on somebody in a month, that would be really quick. You're not going to be able to bring on people in a few days. And one of the keys to success in bringing on the right people is to get them engaged in the project from the start. And too many people make the mistake of they hire after they get the job, and that job starts moving very quickly in terms of contract submittals, scheduling. All those items are happening quickly, and then you bring on the team to get it done, and they're already 6 weeks behind. And it's not a good formula in my eyes.
No, so that's an answer that's very similar to the one that I give, which is uh, don't take on work and then try to figure out how to get that work done, especially when you're at that small business stage. And in this one I'll go with the government definition of small
Yeah.
business, right? Like you really are extremely limited in your personnel capacity. Um, it's a surefire way to make sure that either the next couple of years of your life are a living hell, or because you keep up with the work, to keep up with the work, or you fail to keep up with the work, and it's even worse, right? So it's a lose lose. But what would you say to the companies that say that I can't afford to make the hire before I secure the work? I need the work to make the hire, and that hence the chicken or the egg. What would you say to those companies?
Well, I mean, if you can't afford, maybe you haven't been investing in your company like you should be, because as you've been going along, you need to keep retaining your earnings. You need to be building your capital, because cash is king, and you need to make sure that you have the resources to take your growth steps. And the resources usually are capital. You need to have that capital to invest back in your company, and bringing on the right people, bringing on the right software, bringing on the right process, bringing on the tools. That's all investing in your company. Too many people make the mistake of they get some money in the bank. They did a couple jobs. They've been in business for 3 or 4 years, and I got a little break in the action, so I'm gonna take this $40,000 vacation for 3 weeks to Costa Rica or wherever. I'm going to charter fishing boats. I'm going to do all this stuff because I got all this money in the bank. Well, that money in the bank should be company money, and it should be looked at. Too many owners look at it as that's my money, instead of thinking I need to keep investing in the company.
That's a fan. I mean, I love that point, and I've found myself. I wish I could attribute this quote. Honestly, I can't, but I've used it multiple times. Which is, if your business isn't where you want it to be, and your income is where you want it to be, you're as an owner, you're out of balance, right? If
You're out of
taking
balance.
more, if you're paying yourself like, I'm where I want to be, but your business isn't where you see it going, you're ultimately not going to be able to get the business to where you see it going. So I think what you're saying is, have the discipline to keep the money in the business, to reinvest in the business, which enables you to make those types of investments. And if you're finding that you're not able to make those types of investments, the first place to look is probably, what are you taking out of the business?
What are you taking out of the business? Yeah. And what are you doing with it? Are you taking money out of the business and putting it in a stock portfolio? And I say to that owner, I said, so you're not willing to invest in yourself? You're not going to invest in yourself. You're going to invest in companies you have no control over, whereas
Right.
your company you control, and you don't have the confidence to pour the money into that.
That's a really, really good point. We all get, so in our mind, like, you got to be reinvesting, you got to be investing for retirement. It's really good advice. But if you're in a business owner mode, and you're prioritizing putting money in your 401k and in 501 plans for your kids and all that type of stuff, while you don't reinvest in your business, that could be a miss.
Yes, a huge miss.
Interesting. Is there one thing that every small business owner, or every small business should be doing if they haven't been doing it already? When you really think about like if I could give one piece of advice to small business, what would it be?
I would say have a vision for the future. Be a leader. Look beyond your fence lines. Look beyond the pasture that you're feeding your cattle in right now. Try and look towards the future, and that's how you grow. That's how you plan. Be in touch with your industry, and always be in a learning mode. There's a lot to learn out there every day. I mean, I learn every day. I've been doing this forever, but every day I'm engaged in research and looking at things and reading articles and finding out what's new in the industry. You got to be on top of it. Things are moving fast. You need to have your finger on the pulse of where markets are going. If you're in the high-rise residential market, is it getting saturated? What's the competition like? What's your margin like? If you're doing healthcare, all those things, and diversify your portfolio. There's a lot of different ways we can apply what we do in a lot of different markets that each are affected differently by the economy and the ups and downs of the world. So, diversify. It's great that you love doing restaurants, but if you were doing restaurants 20 months ago, and that was your bread and butter and all you were doing, I'll bet you've had a rough 20 months.
Right.
If you were just doing hospitality, if you were doing, just look at things like the pandemic that hit. And it's not the first time. We had the residential boom in 2008 when that crashed, which didn't hit the commercial market till about 2010, 2011. But, it really had an effect on the industry, and having a diverse portfolio of work and being able to go to different markets makes a big difference.
So if I could kind of, I don't know, summarize what you just said, to my ear, I'm hearing you say, step back,
Mm-hmm.
take the time to don't just let your business happen to you.
Yes. Plan.
But evaluate your environment, decide where you want to go, and set a course and be intentional, and make sure that course includes good diversification.
Right.
Make sure that course includes plugging into your community and into the building industry community around you. Yes. Things along those lines. I think that, guys, I think that's incredible advice for anybody who's watching it. That's spot on.
Good. Build relationships.
Build relationships. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're at that sort of 10-minute remaining mark, and I wanna open up the floor to the audience. Make sure that we get an opportunity to hear some questions. So I'm gonna pop our good friend Cody back up. Cody, what do we have from the audience today?
Yeah, we've got a few questions here. I'll start with the one that will build off the conversation that we just ended there with. But when you talk about working in the business and on the business, Mark, and you look towards the future, how far ahead should you be looking as far as a timeline specifically? And when you have things that come up unexpectedly, like the pandemic, how are you able to quickly pivot and change as well?
Well,
so how far should you look ahead? Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think 5 years is a good outside vision. I think looking at 5 years, and then what you want to do is you want to back map that back to 3 and 1. So, if you look at 5 years, I want to be here in 5 years, then back map it to, if I can get there in 5 years, at 3 I should look like this, at 1 I should look like this. Okay, and then you got to go back and you got to do your market research to see where the markets are and what the prognosticators are saying, what the economists are saying, where things are going. You got to look at your relationships. You got to talk to your contacts in the industry about what they're looking at. One thing I did is I established some relationships with some of the utility folks early on, engineers at Washington Gas, at Pepco, etc., because I had a mentor that told me that those are the folks that developers go to first when people have an idea and there's a cocktail napkin discussion about a development. They need to go and see if the infrastructure is there. So they contact the big utilities to see if the infrastructure is available for the dream that they have. And that's when it becomes a lead. And then you start tracking it. So, looking further out, that's how you look further out is look for stuff that's way down the pipeline.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is long range vision, and then mid and short term milestones.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have a long term vision, and then you have to map it. You have to back map it, and you have to set up the milestones, and then you have to fill in with all the tasks. It's like doing a CPM schedule. You know you're going to start the job, and you got to finish it, and you know each of the stages that you got to get through. You got to top out the building. You got to bam, 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 rough into mechanical, all those things. It's the
Mark,
same.
it's such a funny. I mean, like, how many times have you and I said that? It's like you would never start a construction project without a plan.
Right.
To know exactly how long, when, by when everything's got to happen. Why are you running your business that way? Right?
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
Wonderful. All right, Cody, what else we got?
And I've got another question here. I'm sorry, I'm unable to see the name, but it says, Mark, statistics show that over 40% of all businesses in the construction industry fail annually. What do you consider to be the top 3 reasons for these failures?
Wow, the top 3. The number 1 reason for failing in small businesses is billing. They fail to bill. Small businesses, startups, your wonderful craftsman that decides they want to be their own business person, they fail to bill. They fail to invoice for their work. I can't tell you how many times I got called by a subcontractor saying, "Why haven't you paid me?" I said, "Did you send me an invoice?" I said, "Why would I send you an invoice? You gave me a contract." I said, "Did you read your contract?" "No." I said, "Your contract says how you bill me. You have to bill me. You have to give me an invoice so I can pay you." Well, that seems like extra work. Why do I got to do that? You gave me a contract. Just pay me. Well, that happens to a lot of people. They don't bill. And the other thing is not knowing where your costs are. You have to know what stuff costs in order to put together an estimate. You can't just throw numbers at things. You have to have some realistic view of what it's going to take to get the job done and what it's going to cost to get the job done, and understand where you need to be in terms of covering your overhead. You got insurance, you got all these other things you got to cover, and what your profit margin should be. So not knowing your cost is another big failure. What did I say? Billing, cost. The other thing is overextending yourself, taking on projects you don't have the resources to handle. That's a quick road to failure. The number 1 business startup failures is restaurants. They have the highest failure rate. Contractors is number 2, and number 3 is accounting firms that handle contractors and restaurants.
That's great. So real quick, on this point, this is one. I think those are 3 really fantastic answers, and I think the only concern that I have is that sometimes when you think about, particularly that third point, overextending oneself, and right, that it might create, as valid as it is, it might create some fear of growth. And I don't know about you, Mark, but I see a lot of contractors that are afraid of growth, that they almost they internally they say a lot of things like, we're right where we want to be, we just want to stay right here, and those different types of things. And I think that while we certainly read about and hear about the companies that overextended themselves and had a big explosion, right? And that's how they went out of business. What I don't think we hear about are the multitude of contractors that spend decades providing meh jobs to people and profit for an owner, right? That at the that at the end of a 30-year run, they look at and they're like, man, I should have worked at a grocery store,
Exactly.
and not to knock the grocery industry, but
No.
you know what I'm saying? It's just it's where these. So I think there's another risk that is extremely important to note that is actually not going out of business, but sucking over the long haul.
Yes. Yes. And not having a continual improvement mindset, not having a always moving forward mindset. I like to say, once you stop growing, you start going backwards. In Montgomery County, we had the county council and everybody going for zero growth in Montgomery County. There was a whole bunch of no growth people that were looking for zero growth in the county. And then the recession hit in 2008. And I said to the county council, I said, how's this zero growth thing working for you? Pretty good, huh? I call it recession.
Spot on. And how would you respond to this thought that companies should shift their focus perhaps from focusing on revenue growth to just focusing on becoming a better company every day and allowing the revenue growth to kind of follow that? What would you think of that?
Well, I've been in the business development side of the business for a long time, and people always said, "Well, you're a sales guy." I said, "No, I'm not a sales guy. I'm working on developing the business," and that's what you really need to do. Is you need to make your business the best it can be, and the sales take care of themselves. If your folks perform and execute, if your team is professional, if you are always moving forward and taking on challenges, if you're on the front edge of technology and you're adopting things and you're always aggressive and moving forward, people see that, people realize that, and the opportunities come your way. And that's business development. Build your business first.
I think that's such a different way of thinking about business development compared to the norm. I find it to be a much more rewarding look at that term. So thank you for sharing that. I think we have time for one more question, Cody. Can we fit that in?
Yeah, of course. So you talk about growth, Mark, and I want to know, based on the question that we have here, is when you're hiring for growth for your small business, what sort of characteristics should you seek and search when hiring? Because you also mentioned, your people are your resources, and they mean a lot to you.
I mean, and for me, that's easy because I have my my rule of hiring. First you go with the 3 A's. You want the right attitude, you want ambition, and you want aptitude. I can train the rest. If you come to the table with those 3 things, that's great. A passion for the industry, that's another thing. I mean, a lot of people miss out on young people that are trying to get into this business that went through 2 or 3 years of high school training in HVAC, carpentry, masonry, whatever, and they get out and they want to go to work, and the contractor says, "Well, I need somebody with 5 years experience." Well, if you need somebody with 5 years of experience, you should have started 5 years ago with a high school kid, right? That came out of a masonry program or came out of an electrical program, and then you would have that 5-year experience person.
Oh man, Mark, I can feel another episode or 6 coming out of that conversation.
Work the pipeline, and look for the 3 A's: attitude, ambition, and aptitude.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, here at the Morning Huddle, we try to finish on time, just like any good contractor, right? So I'm gonna bring our conversation to a close as much as I would really like to just continue chatting with you, Mark. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chad, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome. So
real
quick,
for tuning in.
Next week we have Justin Panzer coming to talk about technology in the field. come and check that one out. It's going to be in particular focused on risk mitigation, cost savings, and just kind of the simple stuff that organizations should be thinking about when it comes to putting the right tools in the hands, the right technology in the hands of their folks in the field. And what else? That's every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Be here. We don't have a recurring invite, so I'll say the same thing that I said last week, which is if this is something that you want to make a part of your weekly routine, shoot us an email, or I'm sorry, shoot us a private message, shoot me a private message with your email address, and I will add you to a mailing list so that you get a weekly, email reminder to join. You'll also get a link to the recording of that week's session, or I'm sorry, show, so that you can, refer back to it if you missed anything or what have you. So, Mark, any final words for our audience before we sign off today?
Well, I would say continual improvement. Always look to grow. Don't be afraid of trying something new. Change is painful, but it's very rewarding.
Thank you, Mark. That's awesome. Cody, thanks so much for stepping in for Stacy this week. You did an awesome job. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week.
All right. Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.